Dr. Steve Pieczenik riding shotgun with us for the hour because he was involved in the founding of Delta Force, involved in the training of all these people. He knows who's being sent in from the CIA to supposedly run this operation. I thought this and have done some questioning. And the point is, that's why Trump said it's fluid. He's going to try to have a negotiation, bring in some economic deals, and then pull out, calling it a build-up in the next year. But Pieczenik says that's not the case, and that he thinks this is a disaster. And who knows? We'll see who's right. He's been right about 95% of the time. I've been right a few times too, though, when he was wrong. So, none of us are perfect. The day before the election, he's like, I just think they're giving it to Hillary. That's what they're saying now. And I said, you watch. They're not going to be able to steal all the states. He's going to win. And so we'll go to Pieczenik here in a minute, but I've got to play some of these clips as I promised to do. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to skip this break so we have more time. When I start laughing this hard, it's really a bad situation. Okay. Hey, Dr. Pieczenik, you've been down about the Afghanistan thing, but it's okay. It's okay. Go ahead.
You are brilliant.
No, I'm not.
To pay for this show. Honestly, I don't think anybody really understands how incredibly brilliant you are when you're riffing. It's like a jazz riff of incredible insights. I mean, talk about stream of consciousness, but it's always on target. You're right. Cal Rover's a midget. You're talking about Ailes. He was ready to die. I worked with him on the Bush campaign. These are very mediocre individuals. The reason why you stand out is you've got a mind that's fast. It's quick. You pick up on that stuff.
Enough about me. Come on. Let's talk about, you're really mad right now about Afghanistan. I agree with what you're saying is right. It's terrible.
Look, let me just put it in simple word. We don't need wars. Trump came in. We said no more wars, no more Afghanistan, no more Iraq. That was it. And his initial instinct was correct. I don't want to go into Afghanistan. Then Mad Hog Mattis, and I give credit to Conley.
Mad Hog. I like that. Is that his name?
It's a man named Conley from Boston, South Boston, who did a brilliant. It was a man named Conley who lives in Maine. I give him credit, called Mad Hog, because he couldn't wait to get out of the military and then run to General Dynamics and then run to Theranos, which was this incredibly ridiculous company that was doing bloodstains, and it was bankrupt. And it shows you how stupid really Mattis is and capable of really living a life on his own. And he had the great insight one day to say, I remained in the military because I didn't want to have a midlife crisis. Are you kidding? This guy is a disaster. He is a self-promoter, a self-aggrandizer, and when you read his articles, they're childish, they're stupid.
That's what I thought. It's like he goes, I know philosophy. I'm really smart. I'm a genius. It's like I'm a shaman, and like it is the most. It's like a 5-year-old wrote it.
Correct. And he comes out of the Hoover Institute. Meanwhile, he hasn't done anything creative. He can't write. He's not articulate, and he has no strategy. So other than that, we're doing fine, America. Thank you, Mrs. Lincoln. We had a wonderful time at the the theater. We're in a disaster mode. Trump should have gone with his instinct and said, get out. We don't need it. McMaster's a disaster. Clapper, who should have been indicted, convicted, and gone to prison for lying in front of Congress. This moron who came out of what we call SIGINT and then becomes DNI while he's Director of National Intelligence. Clapper works for another company at the same time. Then when he gets another position, he works with another company.
I understand they're all lining their pockets, but let's expand on this. Afghanistan, Trump was against it, 15, 16 years ago. He's always against the Iraq war. All this, his instincts have been right. What changed? What are your sources? I've got a lot of sources, or is this just...
Well, it's not my sources. What you can do is look at the New York Times, and you'll read the lead article by a man who worked for me, who I call the most slimy, egregious, disgusting individual whom I've had to work with, so-called Ambassador Zalmay Khalilzad. He comes from Afghanistan. He's the only Muslim among the neocons. So he got slipped in, and Zalmay has been influencing this narrative. When the first time around he influenced it with the neocons, we went into Iraq. They created a disaster. Zalmay is a CIA operative, one of the dumbest they have. Came out of the University of Lebanon, American University of Lebanon, married to a Christian woman, Christy Bernard, and all they've done is to make themselves egregiously sycophants in order to get through the political system. So the CIA pushed them through, and my policy planning staff, the boss who oversaw me, my friend, said, be careful. I took him into the West Bank and Gaza. He had no idea of what was going on. He was a terrible translator. He couldn't really conceptualize any strategy or tactics. I came back, explained to Secretary of State Schultz that we would have eventually intifada. The Israelis were creating Hamas at that time. The Israelis denied it. They created Hamas as a counterforce to Hezbollah. Zalmay came out of the University of Chicago along with Paul Wolfowitz, Scooter Libby, and Richard
I understand.
Perot.
So they've got a neocon in there advising the generals.
They have a whole bunch of them. Steve Hadley back again. You've got this moron and coward, John Bolton, who said, I can't go in the Vietnam War because I'm going to end up in a rice paddy dead. Oh, really? No kidding.
But he does have a nice mustache.
He does. You're correct. I must admit. But, you know, this is the kind of guy that will never understand your humor. None of them will understand you. But they take themselves so seriously that they are really slimy parasites of our country. And what we have is a parasitic institution now. 80% of the generals between 2004 and 2011 left their six-figure pensions and went on to get more than 6 and 7 figures from General Dynamics, SAIC, L3, blah, 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 all the other industrial complex. What I expected Trump to have done, as I'm a businessman, you're a businessman. One, to follow his instincts, get out of the wars. We don't need the wars. There is no terrorism. The CIA's created the Taliban. They created Al-Qaeda. They created Hamas.
I understand. You're giving us a history lesson, but what do you think is going to happen? How did Trump get convinced of this? I was told, and by the way, Eric Prince, actually, you were being critical the other day, was talking to some of our sources saying that it's all going to be a disaster and not a good idea. He was saying, pull out.
Fine, but I mean, I'm critical of Eric Prince because his background was very simple. I knew his background when he was a SEAL. He was not a great SEAL. I'm not saying he should or shouldn't be doing what he's doing. That's his business. But when he created Blackwater, you're talking about a kid who was financed by his father. His father's a multi-billionaire. He didn't make his business. And then he came in and got multi-billion-dollar contracts from Cheney through his sister, DeVos. So you're not talking about individuals who've really proved themselves in the past. What we have here is a series of failed individuals. That's my business, to understand their personalities and how their failures in turn repeat and create more dynamics.
Well, then let's get into Trump's psychology. He's somebody who has great energy, I think, great health. Looking at the claims that he has early onset of dementia, you know, this obvious talking point. And what do you make of that as a, I know you're not under the Goldwater rule, supposed to diagnose from a distance, but they're all doing it. What do you make of all their ridiculous diagnoses? Because they've had diagnoses about me that, you know, that I'm a megalomaniac, that I'm a narcissist, all this other horsemanure.
Listen, I hit the psychoanalytical community. I said to others who are not qualified, Trump is fine. He may have certain personality traits, that's his, but he doesn't have dementia. If that woman Navarro got sued by Trump and the family, you would see everything stopping. There's nothing mentally ill with Trump. What he's doing is his
Well, we found out they were told at the New York Times meeting 4 months ago, they said, don't worry, we're not going to get him on Russia. We're going to get him on dementia. So, I mean, it's now happening.
I'm not saying Roger isn't wrong. I'm just saying that the basic...
No. Obviously, we know he's not mentally ill and doesn't have dementia. He's in great shape for 71. Looks like he's 60. As a psychiatrist, let's get real about watching Trump and seeing what he does.
What he is it's not creepy. I told you in the beginning, his father was German, came here, built up a huge real estate empire, and understood that Trump, as an adolescent, had a disciplinary problem. So he sent him to the New York Military Academy, which was more of a reformatory school. That's fine. In turn, Trump really began to appreciate the military precision and all that. But he himself never wanted to go to Vietnam and really avoided the draft for whatever reason. the key element here isn't even about Trump. It's about this machinery, this war machinery that keeps on pushing through not only the Clintons, the Obamas, the Bushes, now even Trump, who came in to say, we're going to clean this all out, and suddenly they sequestered him. Now, I'm going to blame part of this on myself, because I encouraged some of my people to have military discipline in their command and control. I had no problems with John Kelly. But when I heard that we were going back to Afghanistan, and then I could see the footprints of this slimy monster, Zalmay Khalilzad, who avoided every military conflict we had, but made sure that we had wars in 9/11, went into Iraq. He became ambassador of Iraq. Then we went into Afghanistan. He became ambassador of Afghanistan. He never could earn a penny outside of the Rand Corporation or any papers. And suddenly he has his own consulting firm. So what I'm talking about is the repetition of these obsequious sociopaths, both in the military and the civilian and the CIA, who come, define the narratives, and then finally they extract money from it.
He's got this weak point. Literally, it shows how good he is. And he's like, yes, we can't give up. We're winners. We've got to, because we can't let them die in vain. What do we do about that psychology?
Well, the bottom line of the psychology should have resided with McMaster, and he failed. McMaster wrote a definitive book, the PhD thesis, on the dereliction of duty. In the dereliction of duty, he explained exactly how these obsequious generals, Abrams and Westmoreland, got the president to do what they wanted him to do. We have the same situation right now. And what he needs is a reality tester, not his own family. He needs somebody from the outside, whether it's Roger Stone or someone else who he can trust, to say, look, you have to be consistent with your promises to the people. And that way, Bannon was a very effective reality tester. Where he had a problem, and I probably would have had the same problem, is that Bannon was talking too much as he came in, and he was talking too much as he left. In other words, in some ways, he had to be more Machiavellian and more restrained on himself in order to affect the changes.
Well, sure. And then I love the New York Times today. It's like, Democrats warn Bannon, don't leak intel, we'll have you indicted, when they're the biggest leakers the world ever seen. Dr. Pieczenik, I want to play some clips and go to calls. But getting into positive things, they've got Fox News, CNN, they're all unified against Trump now. Why do you think that is? And other points on that.
I want to get to a point that you said about the ability to create something for oneself. I think that's the most important thing we can teach our audience. And let me say something. When I started writing, it took me, I was a 20-year overnight success. I was getting 4 and 5 rejections a day, and I was changing the type, the character. It didn't matter. Then one day, I came up with the notion of an ops center, which was the fictional notion of what would happen in the present and in the future. All the public.
And now the threat fusion centers, the whole model out of your brain.
And one day, I walked to Clancy because he used me as a model for Jack Ryan and Dick Clark. And I said, Tom, I'm going to share this with you. Put your name on the book. Now, this is the same book that was rejected hundreds, if not thousands of times. Went back to the same publishers with Tom Clancy's name on it. They thought I was a genius. They couldn't believe it. They said this couldn't be the same book. So my point to you and your audience is, this is what America's about. America's not about the congressmen or the politicians or even the generals. You serve if you want to serve. You don't take money. I did not take money. And the one thing they could not understand about me, because I was a Cuban refugee, came to America, and they told me I would have to serve this country. And I said, fine. Even though I may not agree with your wars, I will serve. And I did. I was quickly promoted to an 07, which is the Rear Admiral rank, at the age of 39. I had 10 years of pension in. And you know what I did? I said, you know what, gentlemen, I'm not going to continue anymore. And they said, are you nuts? Are you crazy? You're not continue? We're going to make you the director of NIMH, or director of this, and director. I said, I don't want to be director of anything. I just want to go out in the United States of America as a refugee and screw up. They said, what? I said, yeah, be a chance to screw up. Not a chance to succeed, but the chance to make my own mistakes without a safety net, without any degrees, without any medals, without anything else. Guess what? I screwed up, and I enjoyed it. And you know what? That's the message I can give to you and the entire...
And everything they pitch with these participation medals and stuff is, don't screw up, never get out on the net. But Eisenhower was the end of understanding that centralization of knowledge was the problem with his military-industrial technocracy speech. These people are missing the very essence of creation, the very essence of that spark.
Yeah, no, you hit it on the head. And one of the reasons why I've criticized the CIA, but I've always admired what they've done, is because in the 1970s and 60s, they created the McCone Center at MIT to study political psychology, propaganda, national character with people like Lucian Pye, Everett Hagen, Ken Kaufman. And when you learn those things, you never forget it. And in turn, that was the essence of the CIA then. It eventually transmuted into other organizations, but they were always very kind to me. They've offered me endless types of jobs, and I just said, guys, I'm not interested. I don't want to be in the business of being controlled. And even when General Boykin asked me, do you want a clearance? I said, no. I don't want a clearance. I don't need a cover, because in the world I work in as a singleton, just as an American, I go out there to specifically get interrogated so I can find out for us what are the key issues that are going to be coming out in Syria. You don't find it out by confronting them. You find it out by having yourself arrested and finding out which questions are essential. Now, they never thought of that concept, but yet I had great generals like Keith Alexander and others, and Jerry
Well, sure, you go out and you draw the enemy fire, because they know he goes to INFOWARS, he goes to Drudge, he goes to Breitbart. They know, and then he watches Hannity. And they're saying, sir, don't even look at these people now.
Well, what they're trying to do, and we've talked about it before, is they're trying to deprecate you and deprecate you in a way that's just absurd, because most of the media is totally jealous of what you're capable of. They can't riff in the way that you do, and I'm not trying to butter you up.
You're nice. I was told a week ago the paperwork was almost done, but go ahead.
You can't riff the way you riff, with both insight and humor. If you could tell me who does that, and these are professional comedians. Look at Bill Maher. He can't do that. All he has done is just palaver. I've known Bill Maher when he was a comedian in New York.
Teleprompters.
Well, that's correct. Then you look at, whatever else, the British guy, totally useless. I mean, when you come to Alex Jones, and this was very important, and I want the audience to understand it, this is not just about giving you information. This is the ability to absorb it and understand the actual passions of somebody like yourself who grew up in Texas, somebody like myself. Most people don't realize I grew up in Harlem on 108th Street in Amsterdam. I went to Booker T. Washington. What's a white minority guy doing in a black school? So when you want to talk to me about the elites, this is the way I got out. I got out because I got a scholarship thanks to Nelson Rockefeller, which was anonymous. In other words, you had to compete. It was called the New York State Regent Scholarship, and by chance, I won one out of 800 out of 2 million. And I go to a school I've never heard of, Cornell. I didn't have any shopping. My parents couldn't care less.
But you know the Rockefellers were obsessed with test scores. They wanted to get everybody that had a brain.
Well, I'm going to say something, but I know the Rockefeller, certain parts of the family, they have much money and they've done many things, but within their own family, and I won't name it, they have had massive, massive tragedy. When a son has died, commits suicide, and a daughter's hospitalized, that's not enough to be a Rockefeller, and I have pity for them. The Rockefeller Foundation, however, has been a firm.
No, you're right. Great wealth is a curse. People don't know that.
No, it is a great curse. I used to treat very wealthy people in many places, and they couldn't find their point of happiness.
No, I mean, I found out later, like all these members of my family, people that were involved in the Texas Instrument, calculators and missiles and everything, like they would get like $1 billion. Back when it was $1 billion, they would just give it away. And I would like, why do they do this? It was like, because they know it's a curse.
That's correct. It's not only a curse, the guilt that comes in from making the money however they made it. Texas Instruments pretty legitimate at that time, but the point is most of them, you can't become a billionaire without being a crook. I mean, it's just not possible. At the same time, in order to assuage their own guilt, they give it away and make it sound as if they're really self-righteous and noble. I mean, nothing is more egregious than the Gates Foundation, as if he had some major influence.
Oh, well, that foundation's a money laundering deal. He gets the money back.
Correct. Now that's correct. But there is an organization within the government that we never talk about, and that's DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. And what do? They go out and they find the smartest individuals.
Well, no, I mean, it was basically DARPA. What was the name of it before that sent my dad the 18-wheeler with a laser?
Well, that was DARPA or ARPA at that time, but it was Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency that understood the internet in the 60s and the 70s.
But think of the thinking in like 1965 to be sending thousands of kids science sets and 18-wheelers with lasers not put together to say, how would you put this together to see what you did?
Let's be honest. America absolutely, positively has a Zionist-occupied government, the Zog. The Jews control Wall Street, the media, Hollywood, and American foreign policy.
Let's get Pieczenik's take on that, because, I mean, I know, Donna Pieczenik, you had family that actually did die under Hitler's occupation. You know, you're, I guess, half Jewish or whatever. You know, so you guys fled to Cuba because the U.S. wouldn't take you or whatever. You know, earlier, I guess, with FDR, but later would. You've written a book about it and your mother's experiences. I mean, what is your real view on this? Is the guy that did the Camp David Accords successfully, well, with Jimmy Carter? I mean, you're a famous guy when it comes to Middle Eastern peace. What's really happening?
He's not wrong. I wish he were, but the issue of as a Jew, and in the beginning, I was in what's called Beta. Beta was the right wing of the Israeli armed forces and the right wing of the political system. What the gentleman is trying to say, and he's not being anti-Semitic, is that there is a disproportionate number of Jews in the White House. He's absolutely correct. I do not need an Orthodox Jew in the White House who's going to tell you about Chabad. What they don't tell you about Chabad is that Rabbi Schneerson was a traitor. When he got out of Warsaw with the Nazi help and the Abwehr, he came to the United States and denounced my family, who was exterminated, and said the 6 million Jews were deserved to die. So we have Israel. When, in fact, the escaping Jews from Europe, tried to get to Israel, and Eichmann actually spoke Hebrew. He was in Israel in the 1920s. Ben-Gurion and the head of the Jewish agency said to the Eichmann, who wanted money and needed people, he said, we will give you thousands of the Jews in the camps in return for some financial help. The answer was no. We need 300 cows instead of 1 Jew. So the issue of the American Jew who knows nothing about anti-Semitism, the AIPAC issue, he's correct.
Isn't it really a ruling class of people feeding? Isn't it so-called Jews feeding on Jews? Like Soros is a Nazi collaborator.
Jews feeding on Jews. You have different cultural Jews. I mean, in Israel, you have 124 types of Jews. What he's saying is that in America, AIPAC does have disproportionate power. Let me give the example of Afghanistan.
Hold on, let's come back with that and get Scott's comeback. And then our Pio's on. How am I going to 20 hours a day? There's just so much to cover here. It's all uncensored. It's all real.